Working on an oil rig may pay well for those who work on board, which is one of the reasons why it can be a dangerous job. Come along with me as we look at the world's most hazardous oil rigs. But before we get started, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe and click the notification bell for more such amazing content. The Borg Dolphin returns home. The North Sea is notorious for being a dangerous location to sail. However, individuals working on North Sea oil rigs experience the roughness 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is due to the fact that they are constantly subjected to inclement weather. This is especially true for those who've chosen to stay on the Borg home Dolphin. Severe waves smash the rig at a continuous rate, as shown in this video. And because it floats on the surface, it's quite simple to become seasick while on it. I'm going to state that working on an oil rig is not a nice experience. The Alabama rig at Mobile. While most oil rigs are built to withstand rough weather and powerful waves, things may become nasty during a hurricane. Oil rigs, as shown in this video recorded from an oil rig off the coast of Mobile, Alabama, have a difficult time dealing with storms. In this scenario, Hurricane Zeta slammed the rig, causing gusts of up to 240 kilometers per hour and waves up to 15 meters high. This rig is remarkable in that while it is a common procedure for personnel to be evacuated off rigs during storms, this one chose to retain its crew on board. However, I believe that forcing the employees to work on this rig during Hurricane Zeta was not the finest decision made by management. The oil rig in Hemphill County. Texas is famed for its oil reserves, and while it is a generally secure site to drill for oil, it's not immune to tornadoes' consequences. This was discovered the hard way by 3 employees on a drilling rig in Hemphill County, Texas. When a tornado struck their drill on May 27, 2015, 2 of the employees sustained minor injuries, a third suffered impalement to the abdomen, and all 3 had to be transported to the hospital. I believe it's fair to state that the oil rig in Hemphill County will require some safety upgrades in the future. Antarctica. Antarctica is notorious for being incredibly cold, which makes it a difficult region to do business in. However, the fact that it might house billions of barrels of oil makes it an ideal location to start up shop. Drilling in Antarctica is currently prohibited by the Antarctic Treaty of 1959, but in February 2020, Russia's state-run geological surveyor Rosgeologa made the controversial decision to survey 4,400 kilometers off the coast of Antarctica's Queen Maud Land. While Russian drilling in the region may not be realized until a later date, I bet that building a rig here would be a risky business due to both the horrendous weather the rig would have to endure and the fact that people are not so happy about it. Ras Tanura. In March of 2021, Yemen's Houthi rebels began launching drones and shooting missiles at the Ras Tanura oil rigs in Saudi Arabia, bringing the region's activity to a new level. This location is a significant center for the Saudi Aramco oil industry, and the plant produces hundreds of thousands of barrels every day. Yemen, on the other hand, is a country in the midst of a civil war to the south of Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia is involved in the conflict, the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen's east regard it as an adversary, and as a result, they assault Ras Tanura. Although there were no injuries or property damage, this was not an isolated incident, as Houthi terrorists frequently assault Ras Tanura and other Saudi Arabian oil infrastructure. Oil rigs in Chechnya. Chechnya has long been a thorn in the Russian government's side. After all, Chechen rebel organizations have purportedly fought to seek independence from Russia through a succession of civil wars and a never-ending resistance struggle since the collapse of the Soviet Union. Despite the fact that the region's abundant oil makes such independence very undesirable to the Russian government, it should come as no surprise that Chechens have regularly targeted oil rigs in the area in order to defy the Russians. Many oil rigs were destroyed during the post-Soviet civil conflict, and the region continues to lose considerable amounts of oil every year due to pipe theft and oil transport truck theft. In the event of another armed war, Chechnya's oil rigs are quite likely to be either taken by rebels or fully destroyed. Oil rigs in Mexico. It's no secret that cartels control a large amount of Mexico's economy, so it's no surprise that they have a stake in the oil business as well. Cartels are known to intimidate oil producers by resorting to large-scale theft rather than using legitimate measures. More precisely, they've been known to tap into high-pressure pipelines or in more risky operations to approach both oil delivery vehicles and oil rigs with armored cars and effectively compel them to hand up the oil. Thieves will sometimes turn to piracy, as seen by the attack on the 40th rig in the Gulf of Mexico by a band of pirates in 2019. Yes, I believe it's safe to argue that oil drilling in Mexico or its neighboring waters is extremely dangerous. The sea rose. The seas off the east coast of Canada are notoriously dangerous, with rigs frequently encountering bitterly cold temperatures and severe circumstances. However, icebergs abound in the area, and while big rigs like the Hibernia are built to resist iceberg strikes, most oil rigs aren't. Sea Rose is all too aware of this. It's around 350 kilometers northeast of the mainland, and it's constantly threatened by icebergs. It had its first fright in 2015 when an iceberg approached dangerously near, but nothing came of it. Then in 2017, a 40 by 60 meter iceberg approached the platform within 180 meters, prompting the depressurization of production wells and the assembling of the staff in case they needed to escape. Then in 2018, things almost got extremely ugly when, despite the information that an iceberg was approaching, the Husky failed to prepare for a probable condition, prompting the Sea Rose's license to be suspended by the Canadian Newfoundland and Labrador Offshore Petroleum Board. Despite the fact that this oil rig's license has been restored, I believe it's safe to conclude that it works in dangerous seas. Hibernia. Hibernia is a standout when it comes to oil rigs. It's around 300 kilometers off the coast of St. John's, Canada's east coast metropolis. It's huge, and its monstrous heavyweight of 637,000 tons makes it one of the world's largest oil rigs. While this big oil rig is definitely productive, it generates 126,000 barrels of petroleum every day, it isn't exactly the safest of areas. The rig is situated in one of the most dangerous spots on the planet to be out in the sea. After all, the rig is situated in a region that's known as the world's foggiest, with fog prevailing up to 80% of the time throughout the summer. Even in the summer, temperatures may fluctuate from -8 to +20 degrees Celsius. In the winter, temperatures drop significantly, causing extensive weather-related damage to the rig, as well as mood fluctuations among people who work there. To top it off, the winds are blowing at an average of 37 kilometers per hour, making it difficult to work in. So indeed, the Hibernia is subjected to some of the harshest climatic conditions on the planet. Oil rigs in Nigeria. Nigeria is an absolute heavyweight when it comes to oil production in West Africa. After all, the nation boasts the world's 10th largest proved oil reserves and is recognized for its massive oil rigs, such as the Abgami FPSO. However, while the nation has the potential to be one of Africa's richest, it is arguably most known for its startling levels of corruption and banditry. This is most evident in the country's significant oil theft problem. Because the bulk of Nigeria's oil is produced in the Niger Delta, criminals will illegally tap into pipelines and then pour the oil into waiting barges and boats to steal it. While some of this is processed locally, most of it is transported outside by boats, where it is refined and sold on the illegal market. While Nigerian officials claim that attacks on System 2B, one of the country's key pipelines, have decreased considerably as a result of strengthened security, most criminals just steal oil delivery trucks or get it through corrupt business practices. Nigerian oil theft is expected to cost the country 200,000 barrels a day. This not only loses the government billions of dollars in tax money each year, but it also makes drilling in the Niger Delta a dangerous proposition. The North Korean oil rig. North Korea isn't exactly known for its oil reserves. After all, there are no known reserves inside its territorial borders, and even if there were, it would require a great deal of assistance from its partner and benefactor, China, to exploit them. North Korea, on the other hand, has many oil resources inside its maritime boundaries, which is why in early May 2016, specialists began to watch with interest when a PetroChina-owned oil rig entered North Korean waters. The oil rig reached a region of North Korea that is only a short distance from a succession of oil-producing exploratory wells discovered in the 1980s and 1990s. Many suspected that the oil rig was dispatched to tap them and aid expand the country's oil sector, but it lingered in the region until October. China and North Korea signed a memorandum of understanding in 2005 that said that China would collaborate with the DPRK on any commercial oil flows. However, there's been no word about the oil rig as of yet. As a result, it's unclear whether North Korea is part of China's ambition to expand its trade and industrial capabilities. The Moon Rig. Drilling for oil, whether on land or at sea, entails a slew of dangers on the ground. All of these things are exacerbated in space, and while NASA isn't hunting for oil, they did declare in November of 2021 that they will be drilling on the moon. While it may seem ridiculous, the Nova Sea lander will be landed near the Shackleton crater, a massive depression on the moon's south pole area. This lander will have 3 major goals, 2 of which have nothing to do with drilling, and the third of which appears to be aimed at turning the moon into a rich cash cow. Because the lunar lander is equipped with a Trident, which is the short-form term for the regolith ice drill used to explore new terrain, this is the case. Trident is a 1-meter-long device designed to retrieve lunar regolith, so it may be examined and separated in the M-Solo machine. The lunar regolith isn't very intriguing on the surface because it's just dust found on the moon's surface, but drilling and studying it will be crucial for future space missions. That's because NASA scientists are attempting to determine if humans might extract minerals, water and oxygen from this regolith, with the goal that the material may also be utilized to construct lunar bases. However, the chances of a mission like this failing are rather significant. Therefore, only time will tell whether this lunar rig will be able to complete its goal despite the hazardous conditions. Venezuelan rigs. Venezuela was a thriving South American oil powerhouse for many years. After all, it holds the world's greatest oil reserves, surpassing even giants like the United States, Saudi Arabia, Iran and Russia. Yet in November 2020, Venezuela lost its final oil rig, marking the first time in almost a century that the country has no rigs drilling for oil. While this may appear strange considering Venezuela's prosperous oil-rich past, oil rigs have departed the nation owing to the country's severely unfriendly political atmosphere. Oil was found there in 1922, but production only began to take up in the 1970s owing to the country's spate of unstable rulers. Hugo Chavez, who presided over Venezuela's golden years from 1998 to 2013, implemented a number of social initiatives that served to bring millions of the country's working poor out of poverty. However, Chavez's rule was riddled with corruption and authoritarianism, and things only grew worse under his successor Nicolas Maduro. Maduro tightened his grip on power to the point that he effectively dismantled Venezuela's democratic government, and a combination of irrational spending, corruption, Western sanctions, and falling oil prices have left him on a precipice. Things had fully deteriorated by 2020, and most oil corporations will not go near Venezuela to this day. Goliath. While you may not be familiar with the desolate sea, one of its most notable aspects is the bitterly cold temperature. It is, after all, north of Russia, Finland, Sweden and Norway, and completely within the Arctic Circle. As a result, it's not exactly the most inviting spot to start up shop. Despite this, 2 oil firms developed Goliath in 2016. It's an offshore drilling rig located 85 kilometers north of Hammerfest, Norway, and it's smack dab in the center of this frozen home cave. It also confronts certain particular obstacles as a result of its location. For starters, it needs to deal with temperatures as low as minus 30 degrees Celsius, ice from cold sea sprays, and on rare occasions storms and hurricanes caused by deep troughs of low pressure. To avoid this, Goliath was built so that rain, snow and ice drain and flow down the walls and roof, while underfloor heating wires guarantee that exposed sections do not accumulate thick ice. Goliath was supplied with extra lights so it doesn't blossom too much during the winter because it is frequently subjected to very long evenings. ABB, a Swiss automation business, established a seat power length to transmit clean power from the grid to Goliath in order to power this remote platform. While this may appear to be a lot of effort, Goliath is said to be worth it because it can handle up to 100,000 barrels of oil per day and store roughly 1 million barrels of oil in its storage units. While Goliath is risky, it is still operating and appears to be well worth that risk. Somali Oil Blocks. Somalia is regarded as one of the most hazardous countries on the planet. After all, the country virtually plunged into anarchy following the fall of the country's central authority in 1991. Even while the central authority has gradually regained prominence, the nation remains mainly lawless. This hasn't stopped the central government from selling out a set of offshore drilling zones in order to generate some cash. The licensing round for the project began on August 4, 2020, and it allows oil corporations to bid on 7 blocks of ocean off the Somalian coast. While drilling off the coast of Somalia, which is notorious for its piracy, may appear to be a bad decision, the potential is highly profitable. According to this first analysis, there's a good chance that oil will be discovered in these locations. To top it off, Somalia has taken significant steps to ensure that oil operations in the region are legally protected, as the Somalian government ratified a new 2020 Somali petroleum law in February of 2020, which updated previous laws to provide a stable long-term legal regulatory framework that'll help protect oil companies' offshore investments. However, because of the ever-present threat of piracy, the likelihood of things going wrong remains quite high. When the Somali government eventually determines which corporations will have access to its offshore oil reserves in 2022, they'll be in for a journey that's both extremely profitable and extremely dangerous. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please let me know by clicking the like button. Do share, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe so you can catch up my next video.